I'm Michael Steele in for Joy Reid, and we begin tonight with the Republican Party, the party of Abraham Lincoln and Ronald Reagan, the party I chaired for 2 years. And in the face of so many losses, you would think that maybe, just maybe, the party would take a beat and reconsider the brand. Alas, the modern MAGA Republican Party looks failure in the face and says, "Please, sir, may I have some more?" Let's start with Louisiana Congressman Clay Higgins, who claims there's no such thing as gun violence. Yesterday, Higgins grabbed an activist who was attempting to ask Congresswoman Lauren Boebert some questions. Higgins proceeded to shove the man back several yards, nearly lifting him off the ground. Higgins claimed the activist was a threat. Now, back in 2004, when Higgins was a patrol officer, the chief of police was prepared to take disciplinary action against him for unnecessary force on a subject. Then there's Arizona Congressman Paul Gosar, who has had an alleged white supremacist on staff for 2 years. According to Talking Points memo, his digital director has pledged his loyalty to Nick Fuentes, a big old racist and neo-Nazi who spews slurs like their pronouns. Gosar is no stranger to far-right extremism, however. He has amplified social media posts from white supremacists and neo-Nazis and delivered a keynote address at a conference hosted by Fuentes. Take a look at some of the other elected members of the Republican Party. There's Congressman George Santos, who was arrested and indicted on 13 charges accused of duping donors, stealing from his campaign, and lying to Congress. Yesterday, after his party moved to block an expulsion vote, he defended himself.
I think that this was the right decision for all of us, and I look forward to continuing to defend myself. Again, innocent until proven guilty. That is a right that we all have.
Now, mind you, this is the guy who was busted for lying about his education, his employment history, his finances, and his philanthropic endeavors. As he was uttering those words, his fellow New Yorkers, Representatives Jamal Bowman and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, gave the guy the good old Bronx cheer and told him what pretty much every New Yorker is thinking, including his constituents.
No, I did not. I allowed them.
Get him out! He gotta go! You gotta resign! There you go. Come on, man. You gotta go! You gotta go!
Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene started doing what she does best, which is heckle. In this case, targeting Congressman Bowman. This morning, Greene explained that she felt threatened by Bowman, using an age-old trope that Bowman, a black man who spent years as a middle school principal, was aggressive and threatening.
What concerns me about Jamal Bowman is he has a history of aggression, not just towards others, but towards me in particular. And I'm very concerned about it. On the Capitol steps yesterday, he was the one that approached me. Even CNN reported that. Yelling, shouting, raising his voice. He has aggressive, his physical mannerisms are aggressive. I feel threatened by him.
Poor Marge. Mind you, this is the same woman who harassed a teenager for promoting gun laws and stalked Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez back when Greene was just a QAnoner spewing nonsense about Jewish space lasers. Joining me now is Congresswoman Madeleine Dean of Pennsylvania and Brendan Buck, MSNBC political analyst and former senior advisor to Speakers John Boehner and Paul Ryan. Welcome to you both. So, Congresswoman, what are we to make of the dynamics right now in the House? As you have this committee that's, looking at and into the weaponization of government, actually looking like it's trying to weaponize government against the people who are coming before it. What's your take there? What are you hearing? How are Democrats planning to respond ongoing to this?
Well, it's a shame. And the string of folks that you just highlighted for their low-light performances just reminds me of what I hope all America knows, that sadly, the Republican Party is a brand that has gone toxic. I hope the Republican Party can reclaim itself from some of the actors you just featured. As important as it is that we know that they are toxic, we also have to know how they celebrate indecency. Take a look at that string of facts and events. It's indecency after indecency. The very person claiming that she suffered aggression has done nothing but be an aggressor in the most vile of ways. as you said, got her career started by taunting Parkland survivors. Just a very indecent set of folks. And I hope that we can contrast that they are not interested in governing. They took the majority. Remember what they were going to do. They were going to work on the economy and prices and inflation and jobs. They've done none of it. They're doing these crazy faux witch hunts. And to your point, you're right. I serve with Jim Jordan, sadly, on the Judiciary Committee. He's flailing, trying to weaponize his gavel against the Biden administration to lift up Mr. Trump. It's a very sad circus, and what I worry about, and I would love both your and Brendan's take. Where do we go from here? Where does the Republican Party go from here? They have taken themselves down such a terrible set of rabbit holes.
So Brendan, that's actually where I wanted to go with this question. And I'm glad the Congresswoman set it up the way she did, because she's right in the sense that the brand is now toxic. You and I had to deal with that toxicity back in the day as we were moving away from the 2006 and 2008 cycles where the American people basically blanked us and said no and had to rebuild and try to get some wins that would give us a Speaker Ryan and a Speaker Boehner. How does this party recover when you have this type of toxicity being perpetuated every day?
Yeah, it's not so much that it's perpetuated, it's elevated. And look, I think there's always been sort of kooky members of Congress, and we certainly have more than we ever have. But, you know, John Boehner, my former boss, referred to his job as being the mayor of Crazy Town. There have always been members like that. The problem is we elevate them so much right now. We incentivize bad behavior. And look, Jamal Bowman knew what he was doing. He was baiting Marjorie Taylor Greene. She sits there every day and takes the bait the Democrats give her. Nobody can reel her in, and she ends up becoming the face of the party. I don't think she's actually reflective of the average House Republican. She's certainly not. She is an outlier. But there's no real opportunity to rein her in. There is no one actually in charge of the conference. Some of this is the fact that Kevin McCarthy has a very small majority, and he has no real opportunity to discipline anybody or kick anybody out. Look at George Santos. He needs every vote that he can get. And should have been very obvious when Kevin McCarthy made Marjorie Taylor Greene a central part of his effort to get the Speaker's gavel, that he understood that he couldn't rock the boat at all. So he has no real leverage or opportunity to do anything about any of these people. And that's why they're allowed to go out and do these things every single day. And they are a stain on the brand of the Republican Party, but nobody's really in charge of the Republican Party anymore. And so we continue this cycle. Everyone gets rewarded. It works out well for Marjorie Taylor Greene. She gets the attention she wants. She raises all the money that she wants, and the rest of the party suffers the damage.
And they pay the price along the way. And to the point that Brendan raised, Congresswoman, about Representative Jamal Bowman sort of coaxing this and sort of, pushing the Marjorie Taylor Greene crazy a little bit. I want you to take a listen to his response to her saying that she was threatened and afraid of him.
Unfortunately, this country has a history of characterizing black men who are outspoken, who stand their ground, and who push back as being threatening or intimidating. So she's not even using a dog whistle. She's using a bullhorn to put a target on my back to the people that she refers to as MAGA people out there.
And that's really we've seen this play itself out in so many ways before. And that's always sort of an underlying element when you have this type of scenario with a Congresswoman like Marjorie Taylor Greene going after the big bruising black man who she's afraid of. What's your take on his response? And how do you think people hear that in the context of what we see playing out between these two?
Well, I agree completely with Representative Bowman. It's so clear. And that's what's so troubling. This kind of outward racism, bigotry, dog whistles, as he said, bullhorn, when you call a black man threatening. This is a former school principal. I've spent some time with Jamal. He's not threatening. He has the right to say, I don't accept what you guys are doing around your colleague, Mr. Santos, that you're holding on to him. So he's calling it right. Historically, we know exactly what's going on here. And Marjorie Taylor Greene loves this. That's the unsatisfying part, that any of this feeds her need for attention and fundraising and indecency spewing.